Yeah, that's enough intro music. Stop. Thank you for that. Hello, welcome to Scary Thoughts, Horror, Philosophy, Culture. I'm Mark Cate.
And I'm Chad Lott.
This is episode 30. We are going to be covering black metal, the genre of music, the lifestyle. Next episode, we are going to be talking about Krampus from 2015. It'll be our Christmas episode, and hopefully it won't be a Christmas episode like Trick or Treat was our Halloween episode. That is 2 weeks after the fact.
Our excuse this time, we could be celebrating Orthodox Christmas.
That sounds fine. So. Do you want to tell people to rate and review this podcast, Chad?
Yeah, people go rate and review this podcast. Go on iTunes. We're up to 75-star reviews. We are fucking crushing it. Yet Apple has not invited us to any of their top charts, so fuck them in the face. Thank you, and continue to rate us highly. Leaving little comments makes my day. Thank you.
And while you're online doing us favors, go to scarythoughts.org, where there's more information about this episode, previous episodes, and also to sign up for our newsletter, in which we send recommendations and blah, blah, blah. It's super fun. Also, how's the Instagram account going lately?
It's going all right. It's still going on. I'm trying to really just resist the urge to just retweet horror memes, but I feel like that would ultimately make the whole thing more successful. So
God forbid.
Yeah.
All right. So we normally talk about books, movies, and TV shows, and start off each episode with a caveat of spoiler alert. That this podcast, we talk about things as you already know them. And so black metal obviously isn't a narrative that we can blow the ending for, but I guess similarly, I will say you should probably have some sort of functional knowledge of black metal. Like maybe just skim, if you know nothing, go skim the Wikipedia entry or something and randomly listen to a couple of albums on YouTube or Spotify or some such thing to get a sense of what we're talking about. We'll try to explain every reference we make as we go along, hopefully. Try not to name drop bands without giving a little context first. This episode, we have a very special guest, Annie Connors. And how do we set up your bio? I mean, you were a former co-owner of Aquarius Records with Alan Horrocks.
Correct.
You work at Pandora. We'll probably get into some of what you do there while we talk about black metal.
The black metal station,
for example. You're in the band of Minor Forest. You're currently in Common Eider King Eider. You were in the band P.
I was on Different Strokes.
What?
I was on Different Strokes when I was 11.
I totally forgot about that. That gives you more cred for like anything.
Sadly, it wasn't the creepy molester bike shop episode.
It's kind of the only one that's really stuck around.
Know,
yeah. Very special episode. Actually, you know what? It also occurred to me that through your writing at Aquarius Records, the fact that Aquarius used to review every bloody CD and album exhaustively, you might have the highest black metal description word count of any living human. Like, that is possible, right?
It's probably actually quite likely, too.
Like, you've maybe written more about black metal than anybody somehow.
More, not specifically better than anyone, but definitely more. I think we
only care about metrics. Yeah. So
I think I wrote like 30,000 reviews, 25,000 reviews.
Jesus Christ.
That's
why you retired.
Yeah.
That's intense.
That's why I was terrified when my new job, they were like, hey, you know what? You can write reviews for us. And I'm like, no.
So maybe we should kind of go around this circle, this broken pentagram, and talk about like maybe our relationship to metal. Like, give people where we're coming from and how we're approaching it. What are we bringing to the subject of black metal before we plunge into it? Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So you were like a metal kid, right, Andy?
Yeah, I was like a normal radio pop music kid. I listened to whatever was in the top 40, and then I had all these random occurrences where metal started showing up in my life. I had a friend when I was a kid whose dad worked at a major label, and it was before we knew anything about that stuff, and he would give promos as gifts, which I only realized much later that they were promos.
Yeah.
And one of those was the soundtrack to heavy metal, which at the time blew my mind. Like, it was way too extreme for me at the time, where I was like, oh, like I think Devo and the Blue Oyster Cult were the only songs I could handle at that time.
Yeah.
And then I had a babysitter who brought over the Scorpions record with the forks in the eyes, and I was like,
yeah, Blackout.
And I
Why did I know the name to that record and you didn't?
Yeah. I'm already embarrassed. But I remember being totally freaked out and actually like reverting to parental speak and calling it like acid rock. Like, oh, she brought over acid rock. And then I had this friend in 8th grade who was kind of like a bad kid and I wasn't really supposed to hang out with. And he gave me Iron Maiden Number of the Beast for my birthday. And I think that was like the one that stuck.
What age was that?
8th grade. I don't know what.
Yeah, perfect timing.
Is.
Yeah.
But black metal, I think I've told you the story before. We had a record store here called Epicenter, which was like a punk rock collective. And I worked at the thrift store downstairs, so all my free time I would go hang out in the record store. And they started carrying some like random metal. And there was this woman who worked there who was like, someone probably remembers her, but she was like 6 feet tall, had like rainbow colored dreads, dressed kind of like crusty metal punk girl. And like every boy that ever went in there was just in love with her instantly. And at one point she was like, you should check out it was Cradle of Filth and Satyricon. And at that point I would have listened to anything that she told me to. And then those were my first 2 black metal records. And I was like, holy shit, this is...
What year do you think that was? Like 94?
Yeah, probably like very early 90s.
Yeah.
So, and then I got sort of obsessed, and then it was still a little bit harder to find that stuff back then.
Until you were the one bringing it into San Francisco. Yeah.
But I sort of went on this like obsessive tear trying to like find as much of that stuff as I could. Because I always loved metal because the music, the aggression, but also sort of the over the topness of it. And for me, black metal was just like, it was mysterious, it was goofy, it was totally crazy and a little bit scary, and I mean visually and sonically. And so I just sort of latched onto that, and I was like, and this is before, like, once you learn about something, you sort of pick it apart and you're like, oh, these are bored kids in Norway. Oh, these guys are pretending to be satanic. It's, but at the time you sort of, when you first discover it, you sort of just take it all in at face value. So I was like, oh my God, these guys are so insane, and this music is so insane, and and it just sort of pushed all my buttons, and I'm still pretty obsessed with that kind of music, even though I'm sure we'll get into.
Yeah. What about you, Chad?
Yeah, well, I self-radicalized into heavy metal when I was about 8 years old. And I, up until that point, I had been living with a very severely religious shut-in in southern Louisiana. And I went back to live with my mom. And one of the first weekends I was living with her just outside of New Orleans, I went to a fair at a Lutheran church. And they had the game where you throw the balloon at, you throw a dart at a balloon and you break it and you win one of those like little locker mirrors. And the fucking awesomest mirror I'd ever seen in my entire life was a Iron Maiden Somewhere in Time album cover thing. I got that and was immediately just completely transfixed by the artwork. And then within probably about 20 minutes of that, I'm going over to ride on the Zipper, and one of the carnies is just blasting what I would later learn to be Metallica's Four Horsemen. And it was the greatest thing I had ever heard in my entire life. I just couldn't even believe it. And it wasn't right away that I went to a record store. I wasn't even, like, at that age, I wasn't even aware that you could, like, go buy music or whatever. I just thought it came out of the radio, and that's kind of it. Because, like, my family is completely uninterested in music. And eventually I went into a record store, and I was like, holy shit, that's an album, that Somewhere in Time thing. And then that was it. Like, I basically only listened to Iron Maiden for, like, the next 3 or 4 years. Eventually bought some Metallica albums. And then, went down the same route a lot of people do. Took a sideways at dating goth girls for a minute and got into like the worst music genre, and backed back into heavy metal pretty quickly after that, and kind of stayed into it. But I don't listen to that much of it anymore, except for when I'm lifting weights. And I go over to my buddy Jerry's house after work, and we listen to the same music we listened to when we were 12 years old. It's fucking great. Being outside of New Orleans, and we're in New Orleans for a while too, that Southern metal scene is huge there. And I felt pretty lucky to have been around a city that had an actual, like, its own metal scene and its own sound. Because, I still love all that shit. Like, I love Pantera. I Hate God is one of my favorite bands of all time. I used to love, that dude used to come in the coffee shop I worked at, the lead singer, shoot up in our bathroom. It's fucking great. I was such a fan.
So, I mean, I have no metal cred like at all. I was a totally like synth pop goth. I take issue with your criticism of goth, Chad. Yeah, I was pretty much like a goth punk kid. I mean, I saw Metallica live on Justice for All tour, and I saw Crocus, Helix, and Wasp live when I was in junior high. But really, I sort of like I listen to a lot of metal, but I am not metal. Like I'm not a metal guy, and I never was. I'm like a permanent tourist.
Wait, aren't you in a metal band now?
I'm sort of in a metal band, but I think I'm in a false metal band.
Well, you have an
like as long as I'm in it, there's something very dubious about that metal band.
Well, your metal band also, I believe, has an artist statement attached to it. Which
They don't know that yet. Shut up. So, how do we want to start about this? I mean, maybe we can start with you, Andy, as being the expert in the room. I'm curious about the boundaries of black metal because, it's been around for such a very long time. And there is always so much debate on what is and what isn't, what's authentic, what's, true cult. So how do you tend to think of what is and is not black metal, where it starts to break down? And I know these terms are very slippery, and when we use genre titles, it's not actually about the music itself, but I think it's really interesting to think about how it's codified.
Well, I would preface it with, I don't consider myself an expert. Oh. Really? Just to be fair.
If anybody is, it's dude. Own it.
Like, I'm a huge fan, and I've had a lot of experience listening to it and writing about it, but like the semiotics of black metal and not so interesting to me. Like my coworker Diego could definitely perfectly encapsulate all of this. There's all these different arguments like, it can't be black metal if it's not satanic. It can't be real black metal if the subject matter is not satanic. That was sort of common for a while. The best description of black metal I've ever heard was it was a bunch of kids who did not realize Venom were joking. That's my favorite description of how it started.
Amazing.
They're like, this band, they're so satanic, but they were basically like a black metal Spinal Tap,
I think that a lot of that's a very valid description. And I think when you think about like that, this music style essentially emerged from Scandinavian trailer parks. Mm-hmm. Like I think that the true cult black metal fan, the real black metaler, is a spiritual cousin to a juggalo, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah. I think it gets romanticized just based on, certainly on Lords of Chaos, that, the book about all the murders and the church burnings. But if you were there, it was like bored teenagers who just happened to be in Norway and who were rebelling against a super Christian, super conservative, I don't know if you were a Midwest kid and you would, like egg the liquor store, you would light fires. I don't know. But like what better way to rebel against your strict Christian parents than by burning down a church, because that was so representative of this oppressive force in your world. But like it gets very romanticized about evil Satanists and, these kids were like 15 and 16, a lot of them when this stuff went on.
No, totally. And kids set fire to things. Kids murder each other.
Yeah.
Like these things happen all the time. It's just that a couple of them were in bands on the same continent. And somehow that became this thrust and this narrative for the mythology that is soon to be a major motion picture.
And, it's not like they didn't embrace it,
Sure. Well, they were... My real impression is that they were really trying to push this idea. But then again, that's another thing kids do is like full commitment and belief to some ludicrous idea. Sure.
I definitely think that Juggalo... The lining up with Juggalos is super accurate in terms of just like disaffected youth looking for solace and family in music. I think it's super, those two definitely correlate in a big way.
There is one, I would say one thing I think is considerably different though, is like Juggalos are just down for the clown no matter what, right? So they embrace all the merchandise, they go to the festivals, all this stuff. But with black metal, or maybe just metal as a larger genre, there seems to be so much obsession over just fighting over just dreary taxonomies. You see like that's not real, this is real. And where you see that a lot is in hip hop. Like, are you about that life? Yes or no? And then that will affect an album sale. And I'm curious at like what point being about it in black metal started to drive album sales?
Yeah, I really don't know. I feel like by the time it caught on here, except to a certain few, the notion of cult and true and elite, like, didn't have as much cachet so much. There's people we know, like Gossard and Cobbett, like people who play in metal bands and who did seem very much concerned with the grimness and the cultiness of something. Discovering it in the midst of being sort of a voracious, very open-minded music nerd, I didn't take as much umbrage with Deaf Heaven and bands who were sort of radicalizing a very primitive sound and transforming it into something new. Like, that was really exciting for me because that was exciting to me in every genre.
Yes.
So I wasn't offended by it. And I have affinity as much for like shitty 1 mic, 4-track, 3-track cave recordings as I do for lush Dimmu Borgir symphony bullshit, like I love both those things. And as I've told you before, for me, again, I'm not very objective about this stuff. Like, very much like I am about Jungle. I think I've told you this before, where like I just love the amen break.
Yeah.
And I love like raga and all that stuff, but I could listen to a loop of the amen break for like 8 hours and be totally happy. And I feel like that's the same as like a little chunk of
just
buzzing black
brash
metal.
tremolo picking.
Yeah,
Sure.
I could just like on a loop, I could just listen to that for hours and love it. And it's funny too, because that actually makes it harder for me in a lot of ways to judge things. Like, I just so much love this sound and this mood and this vibe, where sometimes I'm literally like, I don't know if this is good or terrible, but I love it and I want to listen to it for hours.
So I have a ton of black metal records and I never listen to them. Like, it's weird. Even when I was buying them new, like, there was just something about like the packaging that attracted me more than the actual sound. Like, because I feel like there's a bit of flatness and like not so much of like a groove, which is probably a result of me like growing up listening to like Southern metal. It has that swing to it.
Yeah.
And when that was absent, it just doesn't. It's it, like, as Marilyn Manson would say, it's like it beats that would confuse strippers. It just doesn't seem.
Well, I would argue potentially it's no beats. Like, it blurs into.
Oftentimes, yeah.
Like, some of the best stuff that I like is fast enough and poorly produced enough that like it really in a side-by-side taste test, you'd be hard pressed to be like, is this Masana or is this some weird dude in Peru playing in his bedroom? Like, they both have this super raw, blown out, tape saturated like white noise aspect. I mean, again, it depends. Like, there's bands like Cold, Khold, who are like total groove black metal, who sound like Nirvana if they were a black metal band, who are fucking great. And then there's bands that are like Streborg, who sound like 1,000 tweeters and no woofers,
Yeah.
And it just, for me, it just depends. I like both those things, but I mean, there's plenty of people too who are like, oh, I like Dimmu Borgir, I like Watain, I like black metal that's recorded in studios. And then there's people who are like, they made that Vice documentary, who like, I only like 4-track bedroom suicidal black metal.
Yeah.
And they share a lot of elements, but they're also extremely sonically disparate,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I want to go back a little bit, because we were talking about authenticity, and I think that, at least to dip our toe into theory for a second. This is
what Heidegger once said.
God. Well, I feel like so much of the arc of postmodern thought has been the obliteration of authenticity, that there is such a thing as the authentic. And yet, if we look at a lot of the biggest music arcs in the postmodern era, they all have a desperate clinging to authenticity at the core, like hip hop, like black metal, where there is goth is the same way, where authenticity is actually, sometimes you feel like it's more important than the music itself. There's like an orthodoxy that your lifestyle is supposed to adhere to, and that determines what these subcultures are built around and who's in and who's out. And, speaking about the origins of black metal, there was the inner circle. I mean, that was at its outset. They determined there was an inner circle and everybody else can go fuck themselves. And the inner circle decides what's true and what's not. And that's sort of still really happening within black metal. But what's also funny is as that authenticity idea has evolved, I really think it has evolved into identity politics. I think that's a lot of what identity politics is about, is again, this in-out, this are you authentically one of us, or are you an outsider, are you an interloper, and determining who's in and who's out. And so, thinking about black metal almost like cosplay or otherkin, or people who believe they're werewolves, I think that's all the same thing. It's like it's your identity, it's at the core, or it's not. And people, having these wars about who's in and who's out and who can even make those decisions. And I think that this is interesting, at least for me, because I got a lot of opinions about black metal, but I can very emphatically say that my opinion means the least on this subject because I have zero authenticity. I am definitely false metal to begin with,
But, the funny thing is that the whole identity politics in-out thing has been a huge part of metal for as long as I've liked metal. Like there was definitely, I feel like metal was at its core was basically us against them in a big way. And obviously it's a little bit more nuanced in black metal, or maybe nuanced isn't probably neither. It's a little bit more hyper specific.
Yeah.
But like metal was definitely like, we're metalheads, you're not, fuck you.
Right.
I feel like, I mean, not even just the metals versus punk, but just it was definitely like a really sort of tribal aspect that, when you're in high school, when you're in grade school, if you were in, it was super inclusive. And if you weren't, it was super exclusive.
Yeah.
I mean, that was definitely more sort of just generally social.
But I think that it's also when it goes to the extremes of black metal, to uphold these ideas of authenticity when everything's pushed to these extremes, it's as absurd as when talking about hip hop, where, what is your street cred? All of these people doing hip hop and having street cred are not all murderers and drug dealers and ballers, There's
what?
There is a very sharp cliff off of which there is the actual authentic versus people who seem to be effective at posing. And what I think is interesting about black metal is, holy shit, if you dig into black metal, there is an infinity of bands that are fully going for it. And the idea that they are all practicing Satanists, they're all living it. They all have a code of ethics and they're true and they're trying to be, is ridiculous to me. It does seem like cosplay.
Oh, I mean, it's ridiculous to me too,
yeah.
Obviously. And it's sort of going back to what I said before, like before you dive deep into it, it's a little bit easier to take it all in at face value. Where you're like, oh, all these dudes worshiping Satan and making this music in honor of Satan, it's so evil and I'm so freaked out by it. And then quickly, you realize, oh, that's a dude living in his grandpa's basement. And when he's not working at Arby's, he's making black metal. Oh, this dude has a wife and kids and works at the corner coffee shop.
Yeah.
It's just like, I think it's, in a way, it's an extreme version of any music. Like if you meet your hero at his day job, or if,
Right.
For me, in a lot of ways, I tried to avoid a lot of that because I didn't want to lose that sort of pie-eyed fantasy aspect.
Right.
And I think like every single rumor, even if it was obviously true, part of me was like, I don't care. Like Abruptum, Abruptum wasn't, one of the guys in Abruptum was a dwarf. I don't really know if that's true. I don't think it is. But I'm like, how rad is that? This band is this evil black metal band fronted by a dwarf.
Well, I mean, again, analog to hip hop. Look at the fucking Ghetto Boys. Bushwick Bill is a dwarf.
Abruptum.
Yeah.
Ghetto Boys.
Yeah, I've been definitely waiting for a crossover to happen. You invoked my favorite subject, which is identity politics.
Yeah.
And so now I will pour my hatred and malevolence upon it.
Yeah.
It's interesting how the mainstream identity politics has started to creep its way into discussions about black metal, because not too long ago, probably not even a year ago, we had a band come here, Marduk, and that show was completely shut down by homeless anarchists in Oakland because of perceived National Socialist leanings. Although I don't know how incorrect they are about that, because I think Marduk represents a type of black metal, maybe not exactly National Socialist. It definitely, like, you can find some friends of National Socialism in that scene.
To be fair, especially Marduk, but black metal in general has the same sort of, I don't know, it's called issues, but anyone who's been a fan of sort of fringe music has been forced to sort of address the bands you love are fascists, the bands you love are Satanists, the bands you love are Nazis. A lot of it because that imagery is really powerful, and those bands are sort of pushing buttons, and like Death in June is a perfect example.
Yep.
Like, not a Nazi, but goddamn does he love fucking with people, and now it's all coming back on him. And I think with Marduk, you know, they're German. All their imagery is World War II stuff. All their song titles are like Panzerfaust. And part of me is like, well, yeah, no shit, people are going to like get the wrong, you know, and that's, at some point, that's why they did it. And then they get called on it. And then
It's such bullshit, though. I mean, I'm kind of emotional on this one because it's like, I mean, fucking Bruce Dickinson has how many songs that are like about British World War II fighter pilots and, you know, rapier fighting with pirates on the, you know, the open seas. I mean, to me, it's exactly the same thing. They just happen to be from Germany, and that's the stories that they have. I think there's a bit of an awareness of what that means broader right now in the moment, for sure. But it leans into that thing about, like, Johnny Cash didn't actually shoot a man in Reno to watch him die. Like, do we have to take every single lyric any artist makes as a commitment to an ideology? I don't know.
I agree. And, you know, like, my band is on a label with some of these other bands, and we got kicked off shows just for this, like, very, very sort of
this one person has been accused of something who has one album on a label that you're also on, so therefore you can't play tonight.
So there's obviously, like, things are more reactionary now, but you know, Marduk's a good example because they, you know, they fancy themselves this, like, black metal SS division, and, you know, they're like flirting with this stuff that's really pushes a lot of buttons for people, and so I can see why it upsets people. I feel like there's a lot more important things you could be protesting, but, you know.
But I think in this conversation, there's always this issue where artists and promoters and people who run labels are often really disingenuous about the ideologies that are genuinely behind this music. And I can't speak to Marduk. I mean, I've read a lot of interviews and I know their lyrics, and it's not necessarily clear cut yet, like, to me, what I think of them. But the thing is, there is a lot of National Socialist black metal, and there are a lot of fucking grotesque, ultra right wing, horrible people making music that kind of dances around the reality of their beliefs. And so whether you care is one thing, but to sort of go like, well, it's not that because of, and then try to dance around a lot of reasons, I think there's a lot going on in the news right now about sexual harassment and what do we do with Woody Allen movies. And we're yet again dealing with Roman Polanski films. And so, like, that's pretty real. Like, okay, here's this question. What do you want to do about it? But it's funny. It seems that a lot of people in the metal press just resolutely give a pass because people who are overtly Nazis but will make excuses for them somehow. And I'm not saying excusing the music because, again, that's a complicated question. You want extreme music with these really fucked up ideas. Those people are going to be deeply pushing a lot of buttons, whether they're just trying to make their mommies mad or some deep-seated beliefs. But I think that... sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say two things related to that. The, like, pie chart of black metal.
Yeah.
The NSBM slice is, like, minuscule.
Sure.
You know, and obviously something like that can definitely paint, you know, seem like it's a bigger chunk of the pie. But, and this is not a defense of NSBM, of which I like a lot of that music. But you know how you were saying, I find it hard to believe that all these metalheads are Satanists.
Right.
And the exact same thing is true of like a huge chunk of NSBM bands.
Fair.
And we've experienced it with people we know, and I won't name names, but bands who were like, oh, well, I love this band and they're kind of that, so I'm going to ape that. I'm going to use the number 88 in my song title. You know, like almost like this misguided, worshipful thing that seems really naive in retrospect. And in many cases, it's somebody who was maybe should have known better.
Right.
But I mean, not to say that that isn't all valid, but I think a lot of those people are putting it on because to a certain subset, NSBM is super cool, or it's super taboo, or it's super, you know, it's more evil in a lot of ways.
Right. I mean, I think for me, the issue is that we talk about art as if it means something. It's important. It affects lives. It has an effect on the culture. But then I think we need to be consistent about how much we feel that's the case, because you can't have it both ways. And I'm by no means doing these are the same people. I'm not blaming anyone. I'm just saying just in general that we have an investment in art. But then do we selectively take away that investment when it becomes ideologically troublesome? Do we change how important, effective, impactful it is on culture and people, the practitioners and the audience?
But in what way, you mentioned you thought that music was getting a pass. Like, in what way is it getting a pass? That's
So okay, I don't want to say like, well, on message boards people are saying something, so therefore that is representative of the way people think.
I've never looked at a message board in my entire life.
Don't.
Good for you.
But
Because I know what goes on there, and it's like a bunch of babies talking bullshit.
But even people who give articulated responses to issues around National Socialist black metal, let's say, or black metal with especially problematic ideologies, there's this idea of like, it's music, fucking whatever, get over it. And there's like, well, you shouldn't get over anything. Either you believe something or you don't, or you should have a clear relationship to what you think of these things. But to be dismissive of whether it's important or not, I think is ridiculous, because we are into black metal because it is a strong, violent music. And then to say like, it's no big deal, get over it. Like, no, I don't want to get over it. That you're kind of neutering the exact reason why anybody's invested in it in the first place. And that's you can't have it both ways, I feel.
You know, I think like maybe one of the reasons why the whole National Socialism conversation rose up in black metal is partially as it shifted away from Satanism, right? Like there was sort of this like academia black metal that kind of creeped in and codified what the nihilism was all about. And it brought along with it sort of atheism. And, you know, if you're silly to believe in God, you're silly to believe in Satan. And so now you're sort of like, okay, what's actually evil and close at hand? And I think you just pick up some stuff like that. You know, it could have easily been Soviet black metal or something like that. You know, like we're gonna worship communism and all the death it caused with this fucking harsh music. And I don't know that happens. It doesn't happen out there, but it would be interesting, I guess, like some sort of like weird Tarkovsky inspired black metal thing. But all that aside, one of the things I think you'll find in all of the different pie chart of black metal, like you said, is that there's like this veneration for the forest and the actual natural land, and the darkness that is. And even there's that book Melanchology, you know, which is like about like black metal theory and ecology. And I think like if there is an ultimate darkness, it is the fact that the forest does not give a fuck about you surviving, and it will murder you and it will kill you at any opportunity. And I think that is the most powerful force. And I like to see that represented in black metal, which is, I think, why I respond to bands like Wolves in the Throne Room so much, because they're trying to evoke the Pacific Northwest. You know, that to me is a lot more interesting than Nazi stuff. I mean, my favorite show is Band of Brothers, so I love nothing more than seeing Nazis get fucking murdered. But, you know, but I think the forestry is more of an interesting force on black metal.
Well, I think people also conflate paganism and nature worship and Eurocentrism with white supremacy. Not to say that there's not a connection, but I think in a lot of casual listeners and people just can't make that distinction. And there is a huge history of paganism. And, you know, it's interesting where I work, not where I work everywhere, but at my work has been affected by this whole like sort of hate music thing. And there's essentially two of us at my work who like this kind of music, and we find ourselves sort of being the defenders of this music, where we have to explain that like hate is a huge part of this music, and not necessarily directed hate at humanity, hate, you know, like it's all these subtleties that I don't think a giant corporation could possibly understand. And sort of what I was speaking to before, where if you grew up listening to these niche genres and these like maligned by the general public kinds of music, you've been defending this stuff your whole life, and you've been like, oh, I like dark music, oh, I like evil music, oh, I like the sinister, the satanic, whatever, you know. And it is really hard for regular people to make a distinction, and that also ties into the artist versus art. And we struggled with that at Aquarius, you know. We were like I loved all that stuff, and we would get to like Forest was one of my favorite, speaking of Forest, one of my favorite black metal bands ever. And all their records were in Russian, and they had these beautiful mountainscapes. And I'm like, oh, this is great. And then like record number 4 just had like a U-boat full of Nazis and a portrait of Hitler inside. And you're like, okay, we're not going to carry this record because I can't possibly have this in my store.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you realize, oh, well, that actually probably existed in those other records, but it wasn't in English. It wasn't overt. Right. It was just this, the music was frosty and foresty, and you know, it's a hard thing to navigate if you really want to be sensitive to that stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's also, you know, one of the biggest example of Nazism and black metal is also one of the most complicated, because if we talk about Burzum, Varg Vikernes, you know, he is an overt Nazi, resolutely so. It is not in the music.
Well, he wasn't
at the time.
He wasn't a Nazi when he was making these
but
records.
It makes it super tough. Like, it doesn't, it comes back to the Polanski thing.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
What do you do with Polanski's movies before he raped a child?
I had to make a list for a list of the top 10, like, essential black metal bands. And of course, Burzum's going to be on there. And if you're making it for an audience, like a sensitive audience, and this happened, they were like, well, we shouldn't have Burzum on that list. And part of me is like, okay, I don't, and my coworker and I were like, that's fine. Like, we don't need to promote Burzum. Mm-hmm. I'm fine with that. But at the same time, this list is so explicitly incomplete without that. And, you know, I think we put Kraft in its place, which is a great band. But like, you struggle with that because like, he's a fucking idiot. He drives around cars and talks about how to pick up white girls and tries to buy rifles to commit genocides, and he's a horrible human being.
His YouTube channel is terrible. He's such like a fucking D-list militia attempter. I mean, just a clown through and through.
But those first 4 records are like untouchable.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, like, you know, you can make untouchably good music and have retarded politics. I mean, look, Brian Jonestown Massacre, right? Like, those albums are great. I love them. I think that singer, that guy Anton, is a completely uninformed, borderline flat earther, you know? But that doesn't make those albums not great, you know? And that's his lane, you know? And your lane is, you know, it's great. It's like, I can't remember. I can never remember what the name of this fallacy is, and I hope somebody will let us know on one of the pages. But it's like when you are an expert in one field and you believe that your expertise transfers over. Like, for instance, Ben Carson is a great neuroscientist, therefore he should be the president. Like, it just doesn't follow through. And those first Burzum albums, I think a lot of people who fall into black metal through the book Lords of Chaos, they immediately end up in that territory. And those were one of the first albums you listen to. And I think there's something about the first albums in a genre that you discover will sort of always have a favored place in your own personal
in your canon.
Yeah, in your canon. So for me, Wu-Tang Clan's 36 Chambers is the first hip hop album I ever actually really listened to.
Yeah.
And so to me, I'm a loyalist to that. So everything else can fuck itself. And I feel a little bit the same way with black metal. That Burzum album is probably the first one I ever listened to. And so I still probably like it the most.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like if you got into black metal, then that's sort of the inner circle, sort of, Mayhem, Emperor, Burzum, like those were all Dark Throne.
Yeah.
Like those form the sort of bedrock of your taste from there on out. I'll just say go to Pandora and listen to the Black Metal Station. It's amazing.
Well, actually, talking about how good the Black Metal Station is, I'd like to talk a bit more about its evolution and talk a little more about the edges of black metal.
Evolution?
Yeah. I mean, it does seem that black metal pretty quickly there was an inner circle, there were these core bands at the beginning, and it was codified pretty quickly, like what the sound was, what it was ideologically. I mean, it seems like they really defined it pretty fast, but it also splintered out pretty quickly as well into incorporating electronics and things like that. But what, to your mind, is where it breaks down? Because like Ulver, maybe they stopped being black metal at some point. Dot Imsgard, well, that circulates around the edges. Liturgy, it seems like they or he is what's his name? Hunter Hendricks.
Hunter, yeah, HHH.
Yes,
Triple
like
H.
He's trying to define a new genre. So now Liturgy are like making anti-black metal, but it's black metal. So what do you think of how these orthodoxies fray at the edges?
In the beginning, I really think that the appeal of black metal to people who didn't listen to metal was this aspect of like outsider music. The sound, the structure, everything about it was accidentally experimental. Some of my favorite records are just some dude who loves Iron Maiden and Motorhead trying to make that record in his bedroom, and it turns out sounding like Abruptum. And to me, again, outside of black metal, all music, to me, that is like magical.
Yeah.
And so I feel like in the early, like black metal always had this experimental streak, and whether it was due to, limitations in talent or limitations in technology, even in the like crudest recordings, just in the way it was recorded, there's this experimentalism that appealed to people like me. I feel like just like any music, I mean, there's some artists that buck the trend, like Dark Throne, who basically sound the same now as they did, more rock, but you know what I mean? Like, they didn't start to experiment, where bands got more ambitious, and bands, like Enslaved is the perfect example. When they started out, they were like frosty, blazingly fast, ridiculous, over the top, buzzing blackness, and now they're like a prog band.
Yeah.
And I feel like Borknagar and all those sort of bands that sort of incorporated clean vocals and these lush arrangements, and then bands that started, hey, we should record in a real studio. How about that? And I don't know that there's a really clear-cut moment, but I do think there's this moment where, I guess, indie rock, for lack of a better term, like indie rockers discovered black metal. And we used to joke, I think even when you worked at Aquarius, where like every person you'd meet, like, oh, this is the guitar player from shitty jangle pop band. And he's like, I have a black metal project too. Totally. And you're like, every dipshit has a black metal project. But I get it. I mean, I see the appeal. You can make this totally beautiful, fucked up shit in your house, and the shittier it sounds, the more authentic it seems, Yeah. And a lot of that music turned into like really amazing experimental, not quite black metal anymore. Hunter gets he gets tons of shit, but I'm super into what he's doing. Like, he's definitely trying to irritate. Like, when I saw them play at the Thrill Jockey anniversary, and they played this thing that I can't even describe. It was like happy hardcore. Like, it was just this riff and this beat, doom, 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 and it would speed up, doom, 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 and then it would slow down. And they basically did it till everybody left. And everyone was like, that band is horrible. And I was like, that was fucking amazing, you know? And, you know, they made a record that sounds like math rock. Like,
Yeah.
I'm into that. And I get that I'm the minority. Like, even at Pandora, I'm always like, oh, I'd love a station that played like hip hop and then black metal and then weird reggae. Like, I know most people aren't like that, but in black metal, that was always really appealing to me. Like, I loved Cold, who I mentioned before, who sound groovy and hypnotic, and I loved all the like Bork Nagari bands that just sounded like operatic black metal prog. You know, and I really like the offshoot that's like sci-fi, like cosmic black metal, like Dark Space is probably the best example. Who, like, if you see them, they look like a row of Cenobites wearing like black robes.
Dude.
They're like super amazing.
Do they sound any? Does their sound reflect
Yes.
that? So is it like Klaus Schultze playing over?
I mean, it's very sci-fi. It's hard to describe. But then one of the guys in that band has another band that's like totally like 20-minute long wintry, like lo-fi black metal, and I love both equally. I don't know that there was a specific break for me.
Yeah.
Like, I definitely, if you were in it and you were a fan, you sort of, like any music, I feel like you watched it develop, and you watched these little tributaries sort of split off. And like, you know, Wolves gets a lot of shit only because Wolves in the Throne Room get a lot of shit only because I think they're like third or fourth wave. Like, the music they're playing is pretty like true to like the classic black metal sound. You know, you could argue that Death Heaven definitely sound different. Like, half, you know, they sound like Slint and then black metal parts, and then, you know, which I think is cool, but people hate because it confuses you if you want to hear, you know, Transylvanian Hunger and nothing else.
It's so funny that people act like, it reminds me of people who get super bent out about like movie remakes. Like, Transylvanian Hunger is still on your fucking record shelf, man. Like, it's always going to be there for you. You can always listen to it. It's never, just because this new thing comes out doesn't mean it's pushing this old thing out. If anything, all these black metal dudes should be stoked at how many absolutely hot women have been introduced to black metal through that band.
Through Brooklyn. I'm sorry, what did you call it, Andy?
Sweater black metal.
Yeah.
sweater
Yeah, and
black metal.
any of those bands, when they're like, without a doubt, when they're interviewed or they're talking about music, they're going to be like, they're going to name drop all those bands. They're going to talk about Weakling, and they're going to talk about all the bands that came before. So it's not like, I mean, I get it. It's sort of what we were talking about, like an extension of like, this is my music, you know, like the whole like punk. I don't like it when everyone likes the thing I like.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's also, still going back to the idea of outsider art, is nothing is less outsider. There's nothing that says I'm not alienated, like I'm on a cool indie label and I live in Brooklyn. You know, I take coffee really, really seriously, and I own shares in a brewery or something, and I make black metal. Like, that is just resolutely not outsider art. And taking that even further, the issue with liturgy is that I think is so beautiful is metal always has at its core, not overtly, but there's always a sort of class issue happening with metal. It is not upper class music. Its origins are working class, and it seems to be pretty pervasive through most of its history. And the guy from Liturgy taking part in a black metal symposium with a bunch of academics, you know, and maybe this is the time to broach that subject. If our listeners don't know, there are like maybe 3 or 4 black metal theory journals. Black metal has sort of like jumped the shark into theory terrain where people are navigating what it's about outside of just, I mean, this isn't about describing the music. This is about describing the lifestyle, the ideology in a sort of meta way. And for one of the most popular black metal artists, you know, new-ish, to participate in it, I think is clearly such a like stab in the back to the history of people who probably feel very outside of academia of anything that smacks of Ivory Tower.
Yeah, it's really weird for me to see it because it's like, I grew up and was interested in metal during the Satanic Panic when wearing an Iron Maiden shirt meant fist fights.
Yeah.
You know, not to be like, oh, it was fucking so hard back then. Like, you know, like I'm not like fucking Harley Flanagan, you know, telling tales of the Cro-Mags. It wasn't exactly serious. But I did have a teacher make me leave and come back with a different shirt at a public school because I'm wearing an Iron Maiden shirt in like 6th grade and stuff like that. So you are kind of driven out into this sort of outsiderness. I've had multiple people try to pray at me when I was a little kid. I was dragged off to a tent revival featuring the Power Team, which is a bunch of evangelical bodybuilders, which is the funniest thing. They do carny stunts. It's the funniest thing I've ever seen. And all that sort of goes on for metal fans of a certain generation. And I think it's similar to like horror fans in that it was the era of Walkman. It was the era of the personal VHS. So you were able to like disappear into your own little world with this music. And I think people of a certain age and even an income level, like got really deeply into this music. Because I didn't know you'd worked at Pandora. And so this is something I was thinking about earlier today was like, when you're in the late 80s, early 90s, and you only have enough money for 5 albums, and you love metal, they're all going to be metal, and you're only going to have those albums. And then now, I think you see this flexibility with genre because kids grow up and they're like, I can listen to every black metal album and third wave dubstep, and then it mixes in their brains in a weird way, and they don't have the same. This might not be fair, but they don't have the same type of outsider emotional commitment to it. I think somebody who listened to it in the early 90s might have.
I would definitely agree. There's definitely across the board, I think there's less of an identification with genre. And that's really true of millennials and whatever was under millennials, that they don't sort of adhere as much as we used to do. Like for us, it was very much back to identity politics. Like, I was a metalhead, and that was important to me, and that was how I identified and how I bonded when I saw another metalhead. Like, that was definitely a signal, and a very clear signal. Obviously, there's still metalheads, but I think it's true young people don't have the same, I don't want to say the same need, but it definitely feels like a much different vibe in terms of how they approach music and how they approach music as identity.
Yeah. They nail the look way better now, though. I mean, it's kind of interesting. Like, I feel like I can't project that maybe they don't feel it as much, but definitely when you're in a little town and you see another dude that's into metal, and you're like, holy fuck, man, we're friends now. It's like that movie Step Brothers. Oh my God, did we just become best friends? And that was like a real thing. And I can walk past somebody who looks like a black metal fashion model and be like, fuck this guy now. And it's super, super weird. Yeah. And it's kind of confusing to be into it, but also against it at the same time.
Well, I mean, at the risk of always sounding like, when I was young, the old days. So I grew up in San Diego, and we would take trips to LA because Melrose was the only place I knew where you could buy spikes and you could buy crazy leather pants or whatever, like things like metal clothes that you couldn't find in San Diego, And it was important. Like, we're like, oh yeah, we can't be metalheads and be wearing like our school clothes. Like, we have to like step it up, and we are going to drive to LA and spend like whatever money we have on like some spiked wristbands and some, maybe it's the Hot Topic phenomenon now that you can just buy a whole, don't get me wrong, I love Hot Topic, but you can just buy an ensemble that's like from head to toe, and you're like a goth punk.
Well, you can also buy it online, and you can watch videos on how to nail the look down with way more precision than we had access to.
Well, a lot of it, like, and I was a glam metal kid, which is even harder.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's one step away from like being a cross-dresser. Like, I would steal clothes from my mom. I would steal makeup from my mom.
Right.
We would go to shows, and I would like hide the clothes and stuff, and I'd be like in jeans, and then when we got closer, I'd like change into my like spandex or whatever. Like, yeah, they're all really coming out.
It's weird, man. It's funny, like that whole idea of like changing your clothes. It really is kind of a weird coming out thing. There was a kid that lived down the street from me that's mom was super religious, and he hid his Metallica shirts in bushes, and he would leave his house wearing one thing, put on his Metallica shirt in the bushes, come to school. And we all knew it, and that dude got in a fight like with a friend of mine almost every day after school. It got to the point where like the fights were so frequent, no one stopped to look at them. And it was always over that guy being a poser. And I remember at the time thinking like, man, if you love this music so much that you're willing to hide a shirt and put it on, you're fucking legit.
And then fight for it every day.
Yeah. That it's interesting how that concern of being like into it or not into it was, or like real or not real, even back then, it's just like, why would anybody even care? Like, you already love something that is so fucking obscure, most people don't even understand it.
But I think what's interesting about all this is that for the three of us in this room, in this culture, and in this the era that we all grew up in, that sort of relationship to music and subculture is a given. Like, it's really easy to lose sight of the fact that, if we look at Hebdich's Subcultures book, it sort of starts with the baby boomers donning like teddy boy affectations and things like that, where Americans, especially and partly in England, started to like bind their identity to their clothes and the music that they would listen to, and that's evolved and evolved and evolved. And I think it's interesting that we're maybe watching it fall apart now, that it is so tangential and precarious and weird that if you think of like, okay, what is a black metal person? Like, okay, they like this music that was derived from the blues, but it's accelerated and it has a very specific EQ curve recorded under very specific circumstances with like one of three vocal styles. You have this certain outlook on life that has something to do with corpse paint. Like, these things are connected. Okay, death, Satan, corpse paint, but it's really these very specific signifiers that all come together in this way to sort of like create an identity, and it's all such this fiction that people put together for themselves, and we've been doing it in America for like 50 years, and I think it makes sense that it would start to fall apart, because it kind of makes no goddamn sense. Like, I'm into this video game, and people who are into this video game, we all wear top hats with a big shiny green buckle. It's just like these things are almost random somehow. They have historical precedence, but in the end, it's just so silly, all of it.
I think it's echoes of an urge towards tribalism.
Sure.
And then there's that whole resurgent like strength cult thing that's connected to black metal, like dudes like Operation Werewolf guys or something like that. And
I think Operation Werewolf has now come up on this podcast more than Forrest Gump.
Oh man, that's sad. I'm gonna have to get back to Forrest Gump eventually.
Sorry to interrupt.
But I think one of the things that fascinates me about that particular group of people who are, by the definitions of mass culture problematic, is that they have taken these signs and signifiers that we associate with black metal and these things that just kind of came together in weird ways. Like, oh, you like Texas Chainsaw Massacre? You know about the Church of the Subgenius? Well, you're probably gonna love this weird John Zorn album too. It's for some reason it all goes together. But these guys have taken the shell of that and sort of like put it on like a hermit crab and turned it into their own thing, and have tried to take it offline, off message boards, and bring it into the real world. And who knows how legitimately or successfully they're accomplishing it. But it also ends in this kind of thing, which is like online influencer marketing, where it ultimately ends in the selling of merch. And that's something I've seen happen with black metal quite a bit, is, the whole battle vest phenomenon. It used to be really fucking hard to put one of those things together because you'd have to wait for the damn band to come through your town or go travel to see them. Now you can go on Etsy and just buy one. And then, if you're a girl who's a 6, you throw it on, suddenly you're like at least a 7.5. They do have magical power, but they're easy to come by. You're shaking your head at me.
Yeah,
but
sorry.
I know that
I actually had to consciously go into the microphone so that people could like picture me shaking my head at you. But I'm sorry.
This is Mark's drag. He pretends to not share my sensibilities.
It's my burden. What are we talking about?
I just totally derailed us. But okay, something you guys would be a lot more knowledgeable about than I'm really interested in. Okay, remember in the 80s, like if a metal band or even a hard rock band used a synthesizer, it was fucking done. Like Van Halen, how many Van Halen fans were like, fuck these guys? And now
all the records had no synthesizers were used on this recording.
Yeah, it was totally a big deal.
Van Halen didn't do that.
No, but all the true rock records at the time were like...
And then I don't know if this is connected at all, but I remember reading somewhere, this is like one of those rumors that like some black metal band had stopped using guitars and drums because of their African origins.
Oh, that's Burzum.
Oh, it's Burzum, yeah. And which I thought was the fucking funniest thing I'd ever heard of, because, I mean, it's hilarious. But then after that, you started to hear a lot more electronics in black metal, and I wonder if it was because of like people were like, yeah, that makes sense to me, or if it just opened up new sonic possibilities. Like this dude's weird outlook sort of caused an evolution in the sound.
I'm pretty sure
since-
those are not related.
They're not related.
Yeah, since we're in black metal, like pretty much at the outset.
And I also feel like the Burzum thing.
I mean, he was
He switched to
rejecting
keyboards because he went to jail, and that was the only instrument he was allowed to have there.
Oh, see, that's the rumor thing.
And now
you
I
know?
feel like maybe, like in sort of an attempt to like retroactively
retcon.
get some Nazi cred. He was like, oh yeah, that was a conscious decision I made to reject African music.
One of the reasons why I love that story, though, is it reminds me of this sort of stupid stories you'd hear about heavy metal in the late
for sure.
80s. You know, it'd be like, Led Zeppelin murdered somebody. You know that, right? You know, you're like, whoa, what? And
But there's so much of that sort of defined like regular people's knowledge of black metal. Like,
We're still there. I mean, that's fake news. That's our presidency. That's everything about black metal. Just like, do you care? Do you not care?
Well,
Is
I mean,
it
what's
true?
the-
Is it not true?
what's the story? Like, you know, the singer from Mayhem killed himself, and they found, and it's true, and they found they found him dead, and they took a picture of him because it's on the album cover. But then they also made soup out of his brain. They also
Fact.
made necklaces out of skull fragments.
that they shared with people in the inner circle?
Yeah.
Fact.
Yeah, Mark says those are facts. I'm not entirely sure those are true. But I that's, for me, again, that's part of what I find appealing. Like, I think at some point, I remember this time at the Pound, I saw Immortal. And it was in that little window where they stopped. You know, Immortal, of all the bands, they're the one that, like, look like pro wrestlers. They, like, have, you know, they're so goofy and
Usually
over the
when
top.
you see funny black metal memes, it's a photo of Immortal. Yeah.
And so this show was like right in that little window where they stopped wearing corpse paint and dressing up. So it was like three kind of like heavy set dudes in jeans playing the exact same music. But I was just like, I was like, it's just not the same. Like, I want to see these towering corpse painted, like, otherworldly demons. Like, that's kind of what I want to see. And I think maybe that's an offshoot of like being a kid in the 70s and like having your mind melted by Kiss.
oh, totally.
You know?
I was just about to say, you'd think they would have learned the lesson from Kiss about not taking the makeup off. You know?
And I've seen plenty of bands that are just, you know, I struggle with that because I play in bands and I'm just a person. But like, part of me is like, I don't want to watch a bunch of dudes in jeans. I want to see like a spectacle. Like, I want to see something, you know, and in a lot of metal and hardcore, that spectacle is just the physicality of the music. Like, you see Converge and it's like a full on brawl the whole time on stage and off. And that's enough of a spectacle. But when you're a band and you're playing super technical music and you can't move and you can't jump around and you can't go crazy, then I kind of want more spectacle. I want more cartoonishness. I want more sort of
Pig heads on spikes.
sure and
Yeah.
like fake models crucified on crosses and 40 quarts of goat's blood or
Man, I love that shit. I mean, I wore out 2 copies of Iron Maiden's Live After Death on VHS, like watching it. And to me, that was always the bar for performance. And I remember when I started going to punk shows, I was like, whoa there, you look like a gas station attendant. What the fuck is this all about? And I was super, super disappointed in it. And then even when I would start to go to metal shows in New Orleans, I mean, it was the same kind of thing. It was like, hey, is no one going to spit blood? Like,
yeah, where's the 15-foot tall creature that comes out mid-set? I'm really bummed.
Although the very first goth show I ever went to in New Orleans featured this band opening for the what's the non-cool version of Christian Death?
What?
The version of Christian Death, the guy with the poodle hair that no
Christian
one
Death.
likes. No. They had the different singer that took over. He like franchised
It's still
it.
called Christian Death.
I know, but like that is it like the Roz fronted Christian Death?
Roz was the original guy.
Okay.
And he quit and then died. But
Okay, so the guy who inherited Christian Death, the band that opened for him was this band called Death Rape, and this fucking dude took out a straight razor and cut himself from shoulder to shoulder and down one arm, and opened his shit up. It was bleeding all over the place, and the ambulance came, and I was like, man, these people are fucking serious. And then that never happened again. But like, it's interesting how these individual performers that take it to another level can really just set expectations. And I think that's part of the deal. What was so compelling about black metal is it basically kicks off with a bunch of murders, and you got to keep up. You know,
Yeah, it sets the bar
It's very
pretty
true.
high.
yeah.
So, what can we say about that bar? Because that bar was set really high, really early, and then since then we have like Gorgoroth torturing someone.
Two people.
Two people.
At the same time.
No, two incidences. But see, I actually, in that case, I don't feel like that was calculated.
At like publicity for
Yeah.
his art. Yeah.
He is a crazy man.
A terrible person. Well, I think.
And interestingly, he's the first kind of openly gay person in black metal.
Did he beat Rob Halford out the closet?
Wait, I'm sorry. The singer for Gorgoroth is gay?
Oh, yeah.
What?
Loves the cock.
What?
Yeah, and his boyfriend, I don't know if they're still together, but his boyfriend was this very twinky little fashion designer. And like,
You guys are making shit up.
and Gall would go to like, there's all these pictures of Gall and his boyfriend at like these fashion shows. Mm-hmm. It's true. How did you not know that? I thought you did research for this thing.
I thought I did too. But what I was about to say is that it kicks off really hard, but then one of the evolutions, of course, of black metal is suicidal depressive black metal or depressive suicidal black metal. And that seems to be very much about self-harm. So it's almost like there is this vector off of black metal that is still about a certain kind of realized violence, but it's turned against itself.
But I might go back and posit that the violence wasn't like part and parcel of the music. Like they were both symptoms of bored kids. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, sure.
Like, I don't think that necessarily they were like, oh, we're making this metal or this music, and this music needs to have some church burning to go with it. Like, I think that was like,
Sure, but I do think that people make soundtracks for the movie they want to live in, you know? Like they're not
Sure.
totally separated.
You also can't discount like the music magazine's role in codifying that whole story. You know,
Oh,
like
for sure.
like Kerrang. I mean, if they hadn't written articles in a certain way, like would it have developed in a certain way? Like probably not.
well, and if Lords of Chaos was never written, I think this whole narrative would be dramatically different. You know?
True.
Even if that stuff happened and did get reported here and there, I think that book was this sort of zeitgeist that like every nerd, metaler or not, I feel like has Lords of Chaos on their shelf, you know?
Yeah.
And in a way, you know, we've talked about that a lot. In a way, it, like any sort of sensationalism, it does a huge disservice to the music, but in another way, half the people who now love that music would never have been exposed to it. And speaking to my sort of love of that whole, like the whole package, I mean, obviously I don't want people to murder other people, and I don't. When I saw the churches that got burned down, it broke my fucking heart. 'cause
Yeah,
those
some of them
churches
were
are
gorgeous.
so beautiful.
Yeah.
But like, if you're building this narrative for a band, you know, it's almost like what you wish, like Kiss. When Kiss happened, I was so obsessed with Kiss, and I think everybody was at the time. But like, what was their story besides like he's an alien, he's a lover, he's a demon, he's a cat? Like that was the whole story.
Yeah,
and I feel like
right.
almost like this is this finally realized version of like, yeah, he's a demon and he's on earth worshiping Satan and he's burning churches, and you know, it becomes this fully fleshed out fantasy that really sort of, maybe it's just pushing my like teenage buttons, but I'm still like sort of titillated by all that in a way.
Well, it's kind of our version of TMZ or, you know, wanting some sort of like sensational backstory to fuel the talkie pictures that we love so much.
Sure, and there's an element of sort of, it's a reaction to all the like cookie cutter bullshit, like that everybody else listens to and obsesses over, you know.
Yeah. I think another interesting thing that pushed the evolution of the sound is like anything, the people who are the really strong musicians who stay with it over time. It's like almost like the same arc of jazz. You know, you early on you sort of make like more like danceable stuff, and eventually you end up into like Thelonious Monk territory. And I think seeing that emerge out of black metal has been really, really interesting. I mean, even your album, the newest one where you take all the black metal sounds and alter it around, I think it's exceptionally cool. I mean,
Thanks.
yeah, you know, I usually have no tolerance for that sort of thing. And for some reason, I thought that I was like, man, this is great.
No, I do like that too. And I think we spoke to that a little bit, like this sort of evolution as people grew up. And I think it's natural for most musicians as they sort of, the scope of their interest widens. And they're like, oh, I actually like synthesizers. Let's put that in this. Oh, I actually like Magma. Let's make black metal that sounds like Magma. You know, like
Who sounds like that? What band is that?
sort of. I like Borknagar and that sort of that third wave of Norwegian bands that sort of like started to sound proggy. It's not strictly like Magma, but at the same time, there's always been this like really primitive, raw undercurrent of bands that obsessively want to sound unproduced and want to sound, and the sort of purity of the sound is part of their mission. And some of that again is, I think black metal folks probably are like, oh, this is so raw, but like I like it too because it's so raw that it then becomes sonic experimentalism to a degree, you know.
Have any like prominent black metal musicians scored any movies? Because like I would love to see a Jim Jarmusch directed horror movie with like the dude from Ludacris writing a score. Like I think that shit would be great.
Cobbett did all this music for Sims.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Because they needed, you know, I think they sing in a fake language, so he had to like learn the fake language, and they were like, we want a punk song, a thrash metal song, and he just wrote all these songs for the Sims. But I don't think I think the closest it's come is bands like Dimmu Borgir and stuff recording with like symphony orchestras.
Well, there also is it Sinister? The movie with Ethan Hawke.
Sinister, yeah.
Yeah. Has like, I mean, Aghast is not black metal, but it's definitely black metal adjacent.
But that's just a song. They didn't like compose music.
No, I know.
For that.
I'm just saying this is the only thing
Yeah.
I can think of is that there are, and I'm totally spacing what bands, but there are a couple of actual black metal bands on that soundtrack.
What about Gummo?
Oh,
yeah,
yeah, Gummo.
yeah.
That's right.
Although again, that's just a collection of songs.
Yeah,
None
yeah.
of the songs were written for Gummo.
Yeah.
What about, and here's the irony, is Lords of Chaos movie, which has been in the works for years and years and years.
Yeah.
I heard recently that none of the bands are letting them have the rights to their music. So there won't be Mayhem songs. There won't be.
But are the bands in the movie called Mayhem, Burzum, Darkthrone, or are they just using the facts as a template for a completely
I
fictionalized
don't know.
version?
Who's directing that movie?
The director is the drummer from Bolt Thrower, and I forgot his
weird.
name.
What?
Well, you
That's
know him
crazy.
because he directed that first really over-the-top Lady Gaga video, and he directed the new Queens of the Stone Age video. He's sort of like a fashion, like he's reinvented himself as sort of a fashiony, hip director. At one point, Euronymous was to be played by Jack White.
Terrible.
Well, at the time, I was like, okay, Jack White's chubby and he has a gross little mustache, so it kind of works. But yeah, I
I'd
was
like to see it if
surprised.
Johnny Depp played every role, just with different hats.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't imagine. I would argue that Hollywood and television almost never gets music right. Certainly not punk or metal.
Yeah.
Like barring the Quincy punk episode and the Chips punk episode.
We should
Classics.
both come up on the show multiple times.
But I mean, whenever somebody tries to do music, it just makes me cringe.
So what movies have gotten it right?
Music-wise?
Fiction movies about rock have actually not embarrassed themselves.
La Bamba.
Oh, good call.
What about The Doors? Was it?
I like Val Kilmer as
That's
Jim
a-
Morrison more than I like Jim Morrison.
True. Yeah.
I mean,
What's the movie with Wahlberg as the rock star?
Rockstar. Yeah.
I never saw it.
For me, I think it'd be hard to outdo Almost Famous.
Almost Famous is pretty good. I like 24 Hour Party People a lot.
Yeah,
I think that is
that's a
genius
very good movie. Yeah.
It's not very rock and roll, but
Yeah, I think I was speaking specific to like rock music.
yeah, no, totally.
Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park, obviously.
Yeah, that's again untouchable. That movie is especially noteworthy because if you're a Kiss fan, that was really the first time you got to hear Ace Frehley's like insane laugh.
Jeez.
It's weird. I can't even do it. It's
You know, if you
Changed my
had a
life.
really shitty bootleg of Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park and just made it black and white, it would look like any black metal video, right?
I think you've just found your next project.
Do 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 do.
There's a movie about like Mexican rockers, like kids, that's pretty decent. I can't remember what it's called.
Did you ever see Leningrad Cowboys?
Oh yeah, that's awesome too. Yeah, these are all
Oh,
terrible.
Green Room. Fuck.
Oh yeah,
Green
yeah,
Room.
Yeah,
There.
Yeah,
Done.
I've never seen Green Room.
oh, it's pretty good.
Dude.
Captain Picard plays a Nazi.
Do you not know about this
ties
movie?
ties back in with the conversation.
Yeah.
Do see Green Room. It is fantastic.
Okay, and it does rock, right?
Yes, actually,
Yeah.
we spent a lot of time talking about that on our Green Room episode. That part of what's amazing about the movie Green Room is it gets all these subcultural references right without lampshading them. It's just the context. They don't try to be cool or anything. It's great.
Where do you think metal can go from black metal? You know, because once you've gone as far as you can go into evil, really, to the point of passing it and going into cosmic evil, even, does it reverse and drive back into nostalgia for the 80s? I mean, like, I'm really surprised with the popularity of Stranger Things. We haven't seen a resurgence of Def Leppard-inspired music.
That was what I found the least appealing about Stranger Things.
The music,
Yeah.
interesting.
Well, no, the Survive music was
Yeah.
awesome and incredible, but the music placement,
Oh yeah, it's terrible.
and it was even worse in the second season where like every scene had a different song.
Yeah, it was super.
Drove me insane.
Super annoying.
I don't know. For me, there was like a development in the way you're sort of metal, how you develop as a metalhead. And you know, when I discovered metal, I was like 13 or 14, and so there was like Iron Maiden, and then there was like Poison, and somehow as a teenage metaler, those two existed. You know, I could go see Cinderella and Kix and still go see Iron Maiden and Judas Priest, and those like at the time somehow existed in a similar space. And then over the years, I've tried to figure out with other people, like, sort of as you want more out of metal in the sense of almost like extremity. So, you know, like then potentially you discover thrash metal, let's say, because that's probably the closest. And then you listen to Metallica and Megadeth and Testament and Anthrax. And then maybe you go to death metal next because that's more aggressive. And I feel like maybe black metal was the next step in that evolution for me, even though potentially it's not nearly as heavy as death metal. It's arguably slightly less cartoonish, but only slightly.
I think because there's again that authenticity factor, it's scarier somehow.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, there is no expectation that the dude in Cannibal Corpse is actually eating fetuses when he's not playing in his band. But there is this expectation that the dudes from Gorgoroth are potentially sacrificing fetuses in a ritual in their weird little home in the Norwegian mountains, you know?
Yeah.
So there definitely is that appeal. As for where it goes next, I don't know. If you're looking for more extremity, I feel like maybe there's this whole sort of black noise thing, which is basically exactly what it sounds like, where it's like black metal, but everything in the red, and you can't hear the drums, and it's basically like grim Merzbow, sort of. Or do you start taking a step back and you sort of become nostalgic? And in metal in general, I think there's always been a like really intense nostalgic streak for like, you know, there's so many like retro thrash bands that are really popular. There's sort of like a true metal resurgence of bands like Slough-Egg that are just like swords and sorcery and clean vocals and like Ronnie James Dio style.
Satan's Hollow,
who are like my favorite band in the world right now.
Who's another band? Tyr? Is that
TYR?
Yeah, I don't know how it's pronounced. Probably some Norwegian guttural sound. But that whole sort of like, shouldn't there be flutes in this music metal genre? And sometimes there are. I cannot even believe how popular it seems to be getting. I mean, I can only imagine that it has something to do with Game of Thrones.
Well, I think that there is a combination of absolutely anything and metal, and now there's a combination of absolutely anything and black metal. Like just any genre.
Well, I think there's that
any
weird,
instrument is in black metal somewhere.
There is this weird mainstream love for bands like Dragon Force and like Ailstorm and stuff that's like ridiculous over the like is ostensibly power metal, but is just like so cartoonish, and the music is almost like Disney metal.
Yeah.
Which is fine. You know, like I'm of the mind that being like a lifelong sort of torchbearer for metal, I feel like if this gets you listening to metal, there's a good chance that it's gonna like be the gateway.
Yeah.
What's that cartoon, Metalocalypse?
Metalocalypse is so good.
I imagine that brought a lot of people in too.
And that was full of like, wasn't the grocery store called Burzum's?
Or was that the burger place?
Or the burger place, yeah.
I think there are two things that I sort of suspect might make black metal make some sort of jump. One is when the Lords of Chaos movie comes out, I think it will probably, I'd imagine that everybody's going to be pissed off about it. Anybody who has some sort of like heart, who has skin in the game is going to be upset at that movie. But if it's good as a movie, it will probably get a lot more people. My mom has never heard of black metal, right? But if that's a successful movie, she will hear about black metal,
and then
if
she will have a black metal project.
God, not likely, but who knows? But I mean, it'll get whole generations of kids invested in it, you know. And then I think the other thing is once Andy and my as yet unnamed band release our first record, there's going to be that sort of like level of inspiration just unleashed into the population. Well, what do you guys think of the idea of black metal theory? I mean, we touched on that it exists, but what do you guys think of that? Just the fact of that?
To me,
that there are symposiums and journals, academic journals about black metal.
I think it's cool and a little bit funny. I think it's people who I think the creators of the music very likely had none of the things in mind that are being sort of impressed upon them. Like, it's sort of creating this like academic substructure that didn't exist, maybe to make it seem like a more valid art form. So, like, I appreciate it, and I've been in one of them, and I think I'm in one of those books too, because I have skin in the game because I love this stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It smacks of like retroactively trying to validate it as an art form, and I think part of the joy of that music to me is that it is like feral, and it is really raw and primitive and emotional, and there's very little brain and lots of like heart and lots of crotch. You know what I mean? Like, it's all just like dark energy conjured up from being a confused teenager, being like hating the world, hating humanity, looking for escapism. Like, it's all stuff that is like just raw primitive emotions. And I think that's what connected with me. So trying to sort of recontextualize it as like treatises on, I don't know, it smacks of bullshit a little bit to me.
What do you think, Chad?
Man, if one penny of my tax dollars goes to supporting any of it, it just fucking infuriates me. That's on one level. Just the fact that like all these people are just producing just utter, like you said, utter bullshit. But I love In the Dust of This Planet. I thought that book was great, you know, so sure. I feel pretty conflicted on it. I think he was really clear about how that music, his impression of that music, as opposed to the sort of
goals of the creator,
Yeah.
which I think is important. Whereas I think a lot of the symposiums and stuff are positing these like untruths about like the genesis of a lot of this music.
Yeah, I think okay. So to walk it out a little bit, I think I like an academic looking at it seriously. You know, like I think that book, and because it's very much in the vein of like how somebody might have discovered it. Like they have a love for it. They're taking their own personal experience to the academia. I hate the idea that somebody could major in this one day. It just fucking infuriates me. To me, it's just like watching some Berkeley School of Music tard have an opinion about some famous jazz guy's heroin use. You know, it's like either do heroin or don't, and don't write a fucking paper about it.
We had some kid contacted Alan and I at Aquarius wanting to like talk to us for his thesis,
Fuck that guy.
which was on Merzbow.
If you're listening to this, fuck you.
And we were both,
That's great.
I think I literally was like, so what are you going to do with this degree in Merzbow?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely throwing stones in a glass house. I wrote a thesis on the Terminator franchise called Iron John Connor. It's about Terminator and the myth of masculinity. So,
Your tax dollars, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah,
I think the whole black metal theory thing is super fascinating because to my mind, part of what's interesting about black metal, as we've been talking about, is that it is a practice, it is a discipline, it is an ideology, it is a theory. It sort of extends the philosophical conversation about nihilism to a more embodied practice. You know, it's sort of like no one's going to be happy with the way I'm saying this, but it's like the post-structuralists gave birth to the situationists. It's like nihilist philosophers gave birth to black metal. There are the people who are theorizing and there are people who are living it. And black metal is sort of this embodiment and actuality of a theory, not there's a philosophical theory and they're just enacting these ideas that are coming from academia. I mean the opposite. I mean, this is where it's actually happening, and black metal theory seems to be a way of sort of like accounting for it. It's almost like taking minutes of the actions, of the beliefs, of the id of what's happening collectively with all these artists.
But are they really embodying nihilism by simply playing nihilistic music?
Maybe. That's the best I can do. I mean, by playing that, I don't know. Yes, no. I mean, again, it comes back to the thing of like, does art matter? Because if art matters, then absolutely. If art is just this thing we can easily dismiss, then well, maybe not. Maybe they're just all playing. It's all just so fucking adorable that these kids are play acting or cosplaying nihilism. But I think it's more than that. I think these subcultures have a meaning, and you know, again, suicidal, depressive black metal, the authenticity or not is certainly a question, but at the same time, it is the thing that it is.
Yeah,
it is embodying the thing that it purports to be.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to put aside my my cloak of ignorance-driven indignation and out myself as one of these theory people. But there's something about like the idea of the bands. The bands in some way make me think of like continental philosophers, and these like your metal fan that's obsessed with the genre and stuff like that really make me think of like, you know, the analytical philosophers. Like they're trying to codify everything and put it into buckets and stuff like that. And then this academic stuff, it seems more to track more with like continental philosophy, where it's trying to get at like the feeling of the thing. And I think that's where the black metal theory gets interesting for me, is when they're trying to explore like, what does this just feel like for a person? What does it feel like for a society? And going back to the forest thing, I really liked. I can't remember who did this, but it's not black metal theory. But it's the idea of the world as it is, and the world as it is without us. You know, like if there were no humans here, the world would still be a thing, but there would be no observer taking note of how it acted. And I think that's sort of naturally underneath black metal. And what's so cool about the genre is that stuff emerged out of these weird, out of the way places with these weird, desperate people. And so to me, like maybe that's underneath all of it, all of the world. And I think that's what's compelling about it to me. I don't know, super nerdy.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But actually, speaking of the world and Continental, I'm curious why you guys think, although there were very early on examples of black metal like Vaughn and Weakling from San Francisco itself, black metal didn't take in America very well the way it did, and perhaps continues to until recently with so-called hipster black metal with Wolves in the Throne Room and Liturgy, etc.
Well, that's not entirely true. There was a U.S. black metal scene that was pretty.
By the numbers, there's more American black metal bands, right?
Yeah, but like very early on, there was Leviathan and Krieg, and like there was definitely a sizable movement in America.
Was there an audience? Okay, let's say just like 1996.
Well, it was still way underground, obviously, but
Yeah.
I mean, it definitely, and those bands I feel like were heavily influenced, obviously, by all the bands we've been talking about.
Yeah.
But you're right. It took a while for it to.
And I don't think that's
catch
just
on here.
because it started in Europe. It took a long time to get to America. I wonder if there's something about an American disposition versus a general European disposition that would make it not kind of take as easily.
Well, I in a way, I feel like American bands were maybe initially simply just aping the sound, and it came sort of removed from everything that went toward creating the sound. Do you know what I mean? Like just hearing a record that's cool and being like, oh, I want to play music like this. It didn't have sort of the same emotional heft maybe at first. And then I think a lot of that came out of bedroom black metal because it was like, it sort of fed into the whole misanthropic, like, I couldn't possibly spend any time with other human beings, but I can, make manifest my feelings in this very dark, specific, beautiful way,
Right.
all by myself. And I think maybe that was a sort of a signifier of it finding its own sort of personality in a way. Because I do feel like, to a degree, bedroom black metal was definitely, and I don't want to speak out of turn, but like an American phenomenon. I mean, obviously that exists everywhere, but I feel like there was this definite sort of surge of, Zosters and, and of course there's like Streborg in Australia and stuff, but like Leviathan, I feel like that was really sort of American black metal finding its identity.
Interesting.
Like one thing America hasn't had is a black metal television star. Like Nurgle from Behemoth is on TV in Poland or whatever his show is, and that guy is like the Simon Cowell of black metal.
He has been on What's in My Bag, that Amoeba show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think he just buys blues. No, but oh shit, what was I gonna say?
RuPaul's Drag Race.
Well, speaking of RuPaul's Drag Race, as you may know, a large portion of our audience are drag fans. I think owing to your wife's popularity and her excellent episode that she did with us. So I imagine some of that audience might not be totally familiar with this genre, and maybe not. And if they stuck with this long, what would you say are like the 5 essential black metal albums, and without the need to do a Ministry of Truth effacement of any bands? Like I mean, the 5. I mean, it could be 5 you enjoy a lot too, or like just 5. That should be on everyone's shelf.
So not like the canon, just like your Andy Connor's 5.
Oh, I didn't know
you
that.
need to hear these.
Like you met somebody
rando.
you met somebody on OkCupid and they asked what you were about, and you're like, here's my playlist for you.
It's going to be like super. So Weakling would probably be one.
Fuck yeah.
Full disclosure, I put out the Weakling record, but they were a short-lived band who were definitely worshipped at the altar of they were the one, I think, American band. In fact, Wolves basically are a direct descendant of Weakling. So I'm really obsessed with Japanese black metal. I'm actually sort of obsessed with Japanese music in general because I'm convinced that Japanese people do everything better and weirder than we do. Mm-hmm. There is a band called Manierma. I don't know how to pronounce it right, but they are extremely low fidelity and extremely bizarre.
Is it a they? It sounds like
it's
a
a he.
bedroom, yeah.
It's a he, but I like to refer to bands as they in general. Yeah, let's not pick all Japanese bands.
Let's visit Finland for a moment, shall we?
Oh, I'm obsessed with Finland and Finnish. I will literally buy any Finnish metal record, no matter what, and I've never been disappointed. Never. So I would rank Ride for Revenge as one of my all-time favorites, and they're barely black metal. They're almost more like sludgy avant-garde, like kraut black metal or something. They're like really. The main guy also has a weird power electronics side project, which sort of leaks into Ride for Revenge, but it's really cruddy and plotty and hypnotic and repetitive and sort of filthy sounding, which I love, love, love. I think my OkCupid date's probably already left at this point. Necrofrost is another like early weirdo black metal band that I absolutely love. The first record's called In a Misty Sore and On Its Swampy Floor.
Oh.
And basically every song is like the return of animalian bloodlust. And like, they're just so great. They were a band that we like championed a lot at Aquarius. And I think maybe that also colored my, like Aquarius Records was like a sort of home for people who wanted weird music in general or who had very voracious taste but liked the weirder parts of each. They're like, oh, I like jangle pop, but I like this weird Norwegian jangle pop band that you can't get in the, you know what I mean? And so I think a lot of the black metal that I love sort of came out of that and like resonated with people who were looking for like super damaged, super fucked up weirdness. And in fact, I think a lot of them maybe at the time didn't know what black metal was, but they were like, everything about this, except I don't know what black metal is, but everything else about it speaks to me. Like, oh, it's damaged, it's psychedelic, so Necrofrost is definitely, and whatever. I love Blizzard Beast by Immortal. That's my favorite one. That's the one that's like the least musical. It's just like total snowstorm blur. I love it. I love Abruptum a lot. Oh, and Vondur. I think Vondur would be like top of my list. Star Wars obsessed. Totally stupid, but totally genius. I don't know. That's a really horribly awkward and unpleasant listening experience introduction to black metal.
Yeah. What about you, Chad?
Man, I don't know that I would be able to recommend. I mean, my taste is so spotty and uninformed through a lot of it. I would probably put Transylvanian Hunger in there just because it's so iconic. Probably like that second Wolves in the Throne Room album I like quite a bit. I can't remember what it's called, but I just know it's the second one because it's the second one in Spotify. I would put it then. Man, I really like. There's an album by Destroyer 666 that I recently. I know they're like the worst of the troublemakers. But here's the thing about that band. Like if I'm thinking about how they sound, they're on Spotify. And I assumed that Spotify would have filtered out that shit. That's what I would thought that like they would have been on top of it. And so I'm thinking like, oh, all this stuff. And you can't understand any goddamn lyrics. So,
but you can read the song titles.
I didn't even do that. I just pressed, you listen to like Wolves in the Throne Room and then it's recommended on the bottom and you click on it and you're like, oh, this is kind of okay.
It doesn't know that there's an epic chasm between.
I'm not even super familiar with it. I just know that people go, oh, like I actually don't know anything about them at all other than.
But that's interesting too, because I feel like they're sort of, we talked about this before we even started, they're sort of like war metal.
Which is a genre I wasn't aware of, but
it's just, like very like pummeling and I don't know. I'm very, very picky about. I mean, I really did like Destroyer 666 when I first heard them, and I still think they're great, but they're definitely a problem.
Yeah, well, it's like that thing we come back to all the time. Is like, is Bill Cosby's himself still funny?
Yeah.
Yes, But what do you do with it? I don't know. Like, I have no idea. So what is it? It's like 3 or 4.
I have some more that I have to add after this.
Yeah, that's
we
probably
should definitely have like when we do our email
playlist.
list. Yeah,
we'll do a playlist.
Well, the reason I thought I should bring up is because we were talking about problematic bands.
Yeah.
And
who's the worst? Like, who's the worst at all? If you were to pick the top 5 bands, the forbidden fruit of black metal.
It'd probably be like bands no one had ever heard of. Like, I think the really horrible ones are the ones that are like
Satanic Warhammer.
I love Satanic Warhammer though. They're Finnish. No, Satanic War Master, you mean?
War Master, excuse me.
Yeah. And Goat Moon, who are also Finnish, and they're also a problem. But there's a bunch of bands that are named after like concentration camps and like I think those are the Absurd is like a really famous one that is problematic.
Graveland.
Graveland are not Nazis.
Okay.
We've been struggling with this for a long time. I love Graveland too. But what I was going to say is Raven Dark are a band that I love. There was this whole scene, this Russian scene of like National Socialist black metal called Blazebirth Hall, which is like, I don't know if it's an actual place, but it's like, it's the label or the place where they all record. But Raven Dark, I think he's dead too, but all of his records are just like mind-blowingly beautiful and epic. And
Russian Nazism is so weird to me. Like, one of the things I just don't get, I just do not understand the attraction is like, because like I said earlier, I love Band of Brothers. Like, Major Dick Winters is like a hero to me, like one of the true American heroes. Like, I've read like 4 biographies of dudes in the story, and to me, the idea of a fallen Nazi is a glorious thing, and then the Russians, they broke the back of the SS, like there's no harder people than the people who fought and killed Nazis in Stalingrad. So I don't understand why that wouldn't be your focus of admiration. It's just so weird to me.
That sort of dichotomy comes up all the time, or that sort of irony when like, we're like, really? You were a Nazi band? That's like, do you even like understand? Yeah.
I think this is very juvenile, but I think it just comes down to people think skulls are cool. I mean, because you think when the Hells Angels came back from war and started their motorcycle gang, like all their originals, you couldn't go to a Hot Topic. So if you wanted something with a skull on it, it was your grandpa or your friend took it off a Nazi, and you put it on your jacket. And I think that like just skulls are interesting. And
have you guys ever seen that? Do you know that show Mitchell and Webb Look? Mm-mm. It's the 2 guys from Peep Show.
Is it a Nazi show?
No, but there's a skit. There's a skit where they're in the like, on the battlefront, and they're both in full Nazi regalia, and then like one of the guys is like, "Are we the baddies?"
Oh,
yes,
I've seen that. Yeah, I've seen
He's
that
like,
skit.
"Did you notice our logo is a skull?"
Yeah. That also reminds me of like there was a period of time when Nazis were ridiculed in like Monty Python. It was like they were like the losers of the war and to be mocked. And now.
But that it's hard to say this, but like the sort of style of that era, the like architecture, the design is kind of incredible.
Well, it's all Roman,
yeah.
Ultimately,
You know who does get a pass, which is weird? We were talking about this the other day, is Marilyn Manson. One of the tours was basically like a full-on Third Reich rally.
Sure. It was like straight out of Pink Floyd's The Wall.
It was
The rally.
Yeah, it was crazy. And
it's interesting though. Like, I think one of the reasons it's so weird that people would pick up the nuance of this, but I saw that tour and it felt so much like a parody of politics. Like he was making a statement about, this is obviously what all politicians really are underneath. And it's so weird that the audience would have picked that up. While just a few months later, crucifying him for people shooting up the school who weren't even fans of his.
Yeah.
It's such a weird thing that like people got it. And then the lightning bolt logo is a fucking Nazi. It's the symbol that's on the back of a toaster. I listened to him on Mark Maron's podcast recently, and it's kind of an interesting intellectual property law thing, is that's a generic symbol, but he trademarked it because it wasn't protected.
But similarly, you can't use something like that you know. Do you know that band Bonal?
No.
They're a 2-person black metal band, super raw, whatever. They put out a single, and the single had swastikas all over it. And like, as people do, they're like, "Oh no, it's it's the Indian symbol of whatever." And
Jesus.
and I was like, "That's all well and good, but you can't pretend not to know that it has this effect."
What, Nazis? I just know it as an Indian symbol.
And that happened with Bolzer. There's a Swiss band called Bolzer who are super popular, and the dudes like are covered in swastika tattoos, and they like have been like called on it, and they're this, they're like, "You just don't understand. These are ancient symbols," and I'm like, "That's cool again, but you live in modern times. You understand like what kind of baggage comes with that imagery, and if you're prepared to constantly defend it, then that's fine. But you can't pretend to be surprised when people are shocked or offended."
Shall we fade to black and roll the credits?
Yep.
Okay. Do we have any plugs before we sign off? Anybody want to plug anything?
Do all podcasts do like the plug segment?
It can't hurt.
I'm in a band with Mark.
I'm in a band with Andy.
Oh, actually, I do have something to plug.
Talking to the microphone.
I do have something to plug. I was waiting to have merchandise ready, but some of you may know I have started a militia called the Doomsday Scouts. And it is a fun-loving group for people who want to better themselves by preparing for the end times. We have a great logo.
Not accelerating the end times. Just be
I know,
prepared
like
for it.
yeah. So so one of the features of the Doomsday Scouts is there is an ever-expanding and contradictory scout law that is being worked out amongst the members of the group, and it's exactly like in Tom Sawyer, when the Tom Sawyer's gang makes up all these rules on the spot, and it's all kind of based on Masonic tradition, and it's sort of like parodying that. It's the same kind of thing. So there's that element of it. Mostly it's about fun stuff. Because it is America, it seems to have slid right into being a gun culture site. So if you came for the Wes Anderson-y logo and are mad because of a lot of veterans in our group love talking about machine guns, I'm sorry in advance. But go on over there, check it out.
Sorry.
Well, I'm sorry.
Sorry for you.
I'm sorry that you're so un-American that you can't appreciate it. Sorry. I don't know.
So plug it. So
doomsdayscouts.com. It's I guess it's a little side project of mine. So, yeah.
That mostly is about you making money off of merch.
Well, ultimately, it is a capitalist enterprise. We are into the T-shirt and patch selling business, like many other online endeavors. But also, I think there's a real need to learn how to do physical things. And I was very surprised at the initial response to it. Like, the group went from, like, I put it online to there was like 200 people on it in like 2 days. And I think there's something about like the popularity of shows like The Walking Dead and books like The Road. Like, people really have this love of fantasizing about what the end times would be like. And I don't think it's because they want to see everyone die. I think it's because people aren't tested and they don't really know how to do anything. And I know, like, in a survival situation, all I really know how to do is shoot guns. Like, I don't know how to tie ropes or anything useful. Like, I'm not going to be rebuilding civilization. I'm probably going to end up being a raider, and that's kind of against my own personal moral system. So it's really about me learning how to not be a burden on the survivors of the apocalypse. And hopefully you guys can join me.
And if you have space on your battle vest.
Yeah,
Doomsday Scout
it is a
patch.
great. I mean, it's going to be a 3.5-inch patch, so make sure you save some space on there.
Totally.
Yeah.
Andy, do you want to play us out on that?
Oh yeah,
that coffin. Thanks for listening, everybody.
It's as if R2-D2 was making black metal.
If R2 was a cutter, just at home alone.
He just cut himself with that little torch over and over again.
this is all getting cut out.
No way.